Welcome everyone once again on Dream Career Talk Show. Today we are on episode number 78 and a very special episode on a technology which is in huge demand, right? So SAP, we all are aware of it, which is widely used in businesses across the globe. There's a huge demand for SAP consultants, but yes, as we know, technology keeps changing fast. Many things have even changed in SAP world as well. All new SAP modules, like S for HANA especially, is in huge demand and now has a great scope as well. So, how is SAP used in various industries, especially in the aviation industry? We'll cover a few examples here. How does S for HANA implementation happen? Migration happens. How do you troubleshoot that? What are the different things that can help SAP consultants to actually master the skill? To understand more of all of this, we have our today's guest who calls herself as the SAP Woman. Indu Sahoo has implemented SAP in 9 different businesses such as aviation, beverage, mining, construction, production, etc., in more than 20 countries across 5 different continents. She is the author of an ebook titled Unleash the Real You and the author of the upcoming book Nowhere to Grow But Up. She loves sharing stories and believes that all these stories are unique and can create a great impact on anyone's life. She is also an host of her own podcast named Wonder Woman Next Door as a platform to make sure all the women, all the unseen, unheard stories of these power packed women all across the globe are put in the limelight. She is from a small town of Rourkela in Orissa. Life has been her playground, and all the setbacks and failures have been her stepping stones. She is flawed, fierce, and fabulous. She is on a mission to impact the lives of 1 million women and help them grow holistically. Hindu, it's a great privilege to have you here on Dream Career Talk Show. Welcome to Dream Career Talk Show.
It is my honor to be in your show. I feel so privileged to share the screen for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for being so kind. And of course, you have great expertise in the field of SAP, right? Working in various countries, implementing a lot of projects out there. But before we get into like discussing about SAP in terms of how can you implement, migrate, and all, let's know from you like your story of how did you enter into this SAP world? Was it your passion? Was it accidental? And how did you actually go from where you started to till date becoming highly successful in this particular career and traveling places and making some good money as well out there?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for the great introduction. I was like, is it me that you're talking about? You were talking. I was like, oh my god. And then I realized that yeah, I think I have achieved a bit. So yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I always love to be with the machines and all. And I started my career as a mechanical engineer. And SAP, I will not say it just happened to me. I was also inclined with the kind of automation, and if I say mechanical means I have to be very close to the machines and manufacturing setup and all those things. To be frank, on the shop floor, and I knew that things are changing, technology is coming in, and that's how the world is changing. And there has to be some automation or some business process, because if you take any business, there are multiple business processes. And when I got introduced to SAP, this entire tool to manage the business process, I felt that it is something which aligns, and also it helps to optimize the lot of processes that different businesses work. So it came as a package, and that's how I got started, introduced to this, the world of SAP, and got into some rollouts, some implementation into different companies that I worked in. And it was kind of fascinating. And one more thing, and what I liked about SAP is it is a tool. It's a business tool which gets plugged and played into different kind of businesses. And I got an opportunity to implement. I have not done much rollouts. I have done a lot of implementations. And when I say implementation means, you are in a business, let's say it's automobile company, let's say Tata or any company. They are into some own legacy. It could be an Excel or an Oracle based system, and they want to move from the homegrown system or the in-house system to SAP. So that's the implementation, means you don't have anything, or you have something and you are moving to. So that's, it is like building from scratch. So I got that opportunity to work with multiple implementation projects where you actually also analyze each and every process. It's not that you just put the product into whatever process. So there's a lot of process optimization also which happens as a part of this product. So that way it helped me also to know each and every business. And like I said, I'm not a IT person. I am a hardcore mechanical person. And for me, I don't see technology as a digital world. For me, technology is business. So for me to make my business easy, if there is a tool, I want to know and I want to see how best that tool can be used. So that was the way. That's one thing which was very clear. So whether it was a construction company, whether it was a manufacturing company, whether it was a production company, and every, if you see, every business is very different. But when you get, whenever I got the opportunity to get into these implementations, especially let's say the construction world, or maybe the IS utility where you have the gas pipelines which needs to be laid, and then you have those meters which are installed, and you have to trace everything, the location you have. So there are different modules in SAP. So if people know about SAP, there are many modules in SAP. Like you have the SD module, you have MM module, you have PM module, you have finance modules. So each and every module has its own core business aspect. So that way it was very fascinating to know the entire. It helps you to know each and every, even though you're focusing on one particular module. But with SAP, because the modules are so integrated, so it becomes, it naturally you tend to know about the other module because these are very integrated module. And that's how the journey for me of SAP started. So I first did, it was, I started as an end user in a manufacturing company. And because I liked the entire thing of the world of SAP, I was very curious to know. I have not done any certification in SAP, but I think I know. I can manage the product and I can give a good solution out of this product. So reason was because I was very close. I've always wanted to work very close to the business, understand the business, and then put the product on it, because that way it helps, the utilization of the product becomes easy. Otherwise later on it ends up, you end up doing a lot of customization. So that is, I think that was my biggest learning in all my implementations. I always made sure that I understand the process, I understand the business requirement is very important. So in any implementations, in a normal SAP implementation projects, we have different phases. We have like the requirement gathering phases, then we have the build, we have the construction phase, then we do the testing and then cut over and then do the migration. So out of all these five phases, I say the most important phase is the requirement, understanding the requirement. Otherwise, in the software you also see a lot of memes where they said something and what you gave is something else. And I have not worked in any other software, so I cannot comment. But in SAP, there is high chances this can happen if the person who is implementing has not understood the process well. And I think in my cases, most of that was my focus area. So that way, so the first implementation I did, that was in a manufacturing company. And it was like, usually it takes 9 months to 1 year time to complete the implementations. And because I wanted to also explore the other businesses, so I used to keep changing jobs or change projects where I get new business to work on. And then it was construction, and then IS utilities, then beverage. And like right now I'm working with the aviation industry for, again, the SAP implementation. So it has been an amazing, fascinating journey of SAP.
Great, nice to know that. And I love that perspective you had and the approach that you had when you spoke about. For me, it's all about business, right? Understanding the entire business and then doing it from that angle. So, you also spoke about your first project in manufacturing. So,
Mhm.
since you have done a lot of implementations, what are the best recommendations that, or the best things that you need to follow in the requirement gathering stage? You spoke about requirement gathering becoming one of the most important stage there. So
Mhm.
what are your recommendations, and what is that you used to follow that made your project successful?
Yeah, so SAP, like I told, it also gives you some templates. It gives you a list of questionnaires, and again, that is a very general thing that they give. But it is very important to work very close to the people who is associated with the business, because whenever an implementation comes, it is very important to have that core team in place whose basic focus is to just be with this project and give all kind of inputs. And whenever we have these people who are a part of the team from the business end, it has to be very important that these are the people who have actually worked closely with the business. Let's say if
And
there
who
is
is
a
this core team? Like, sorry to interrupt, but who is this core team? When you talk about core team, like, are they like coming from the testing background, implementation, or from the business requirement, the business
from the
development executive? Who are
business.
these?
Yeah, so these are from the business people. So as a consultant, obviously you need to know the product. So
Right.
that is something very important for the consultant, or everyone who is an SAP consultant or who wants to pursue SAP as a career. So for them, it is very important to know the product of SAP. Second thing, that person has to also be very open to know how the business works. Let's say if
Mhm.
it is a manufacturing setup, and again, I know it will not come naturally. So usually I say that to get into SAP, it's very important if you have a domain knowledge. And I think for me it helped because I had that domain knowledge. I have worked with the machines. I have worked very closely, so I understand that okay, at this point of time this happens. I have
Mm.
worked in the store, so I know that okay, there are chances where the inventory can go high. There are chances where I need some automation where automatically my replenishment should happen. I don't have to do manually. My stores has to be managed in a way so that I have the traceability that okay, these are the items are which are kept in this particular row. These are the items. So these are the things which I have personally worked. So when as a consultant, when I started working with different businesses, I was able to understand the business language.
Right.
It was not that a person with of computer coming to a shop floor and designing something. Then it becomes a gap. So if that gap is bridged, then that becomes an easy path for the consultants. So that is from the knowledge standpoint. There are also certain tools like we in SAP we have the document which we say the blueprint document, where we literally make sure all the requirements are listed. And also at the end of the blueprint document, it is very important to also get a sign off from both the party that yes, this is what is the requirement and I have understood the requirement well. So these are the few things or the tools that needs to be that I have used in all my implementations to make sure that the requirements are foolproof.
Right. And you mentioned about it's very important to have that domain knowledge. Like for you, it was coming from the machines background. You understood this, right? So if you look at any SAP consultant, right, how much do you think is approximate split in terms of percentage of knowledge they should have from domain, right, in terms of the industry or the business, in terms of SAP as in the product itself, the processes and the principles of SAP, and how much in terms of the tools, because all of these play a very important role, right? So how much
Yeah.
percentage approximately do you think is very important when you actually put that in a composition?
Yeah, so I will say for sure the knowledge of SAP is 60% for sure,
Mhm.
because that is the core. And I will say, let's say 15%, I will give it to the tools, and remaining 20%, it becomes like 60-20-20. 60%
Okay.
knowledge of the tool, 20% domain is good enough. At least the domain knowledge is good enough to understand the language. Should
Right.
not become a foreign language where you don't understand what they're saying. And then obviously the tools has to be something that has to be leveraged to make sure things are mapped properly.
Right. And SAP, like again, SAP, when it started from there to till now, I think there is a huge transition also that has been happening in SAP world as well, right? Just like any other technology. So, how is it different today when you talk about S4 HANA, right? That is something that you are working on when compared to when you started and you were doing a lot of implementations. How is it a game changer right now, and how it is helping businesses today?
Yeah, I have seen this product evolve So started with R3 4.7 version and then
And which
6.0.
year was this? This was which
This
year?
was 2000, 2006, 2007. So
2006.
that's how
Approximately
this
16
product has
years
grown.
now.
Yeah, I think I have grown along with the product of SAP. Yeah, and now with S4 HANA, things are much easier and faster. The user, the entire user interface, like the conventional screen of SAP, which has a lot of fields, and it becomes at the end for the end user, it becomes like a lot of things they see on the screen which they feel is not required. Then we have to, as a part of the training document, we have to say that okay, you have to just fill, these are the things that you have to fill, just ignore the rest. With S4 HANA, the UI, the new UI that they have given, it is very user friendly. And there is also a product which is that comes as a part of S4 HANA, which is the Fiori, which gives you a lot of customization option, which you can make a very simple screen on tiles. And it also has like mobility, where you can see your screens on the phone. So a lot of new things has come. Plus there's a lot of technical aspects where the tables has been optimized. There are like we used to have 3 4 tables. They have now made one table out of it, and it's the processing has also increased. So all those technical things in the background that has happened in this S4 HANA. But at the end of the day, again, that like I said, it's a product which increases, like it increases your productivity. Like in usually in the conventional, if there is a lot of load, then you click a button and then it go round and round. It takes
Right.
some time usually if the load is too high. But with the optimization of tables that has happened with S4 HANA, things are faster, because that's how the optimizations has been carried out behind
Great.
the way the fields and tables are now designed. So this is
That
one big change, and the second one is the user interface. With the Fiori, it becomes very easy for the user to see only what they want to see. So
Right.
that's
So user interface, I think, plays a very important role in any product. So one is
yeah,
user interface, and the other one you spoke about how the tables have been optimized, right?
yeah.
So now for any CRM platform, I think database, the backend becomes a very important thing as well, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in the front we are seeing something, but in the backend there is a database. So has
Hmm.
the database also changed the way you interact with the databases? Of course, the table optimization has happened, but what was the database that was used earlier when you started? And what is the database that is in the backend today? And how is the performance of the database right now?
I will say when I started, it was like we used to have all those tables and fields, which has been used. I think till ECC 6 it was used. But with S4 HANA, like I said, we have in materials. If I say like it's a module, so we have BSEC table, we have NSEC table, we have different tables
Hmm.
where you have a few of the fields are very duplicate fields. So if, let's say if you're putting a report, if you're planning to put a report, then you have to map all those tables and field with all these 3 4 tables, and map also when you process those reports, then it has to go to all those respective table, fetch the data, and then so it was taking, the processing time was taking some time. But with S4 HANA, they have created, like they have clubbed these 3 4 tables into one table. So the processing has become very easy, and it has also become faster. And even let's say when you make any S4 HANA report or BI report out of these tables, because it is now concise and it is compromise, it has become a very simple table, the processing becomes very faster. So that way the
Right.
database has been optimized a lot as a part. And that's, I think that was one of the idea of moving, getting into this new product of S4 HANA, where the data is increasing day by day in all the businesses, and everyone, like at the end of the day, it is the reports that is important.
Of
And
course.
SAP being a product, it is a kind of expensive product, and reason people get into SAP is they want all those reports, the dashboard reports and all. So all the data that comes from the back end as a part of the transactions from the end user, it gets stored. If the tables are simple, pulling the report and data migration and mining of that data and putting that into analytics, it becomes easy and faster.
Right. And but when it comes to database, right? So SAP has its own database, or they are actually using some database like Oracle or MySQL. What is the database that is being used in S4 HANA today?
It has its own database.
It's okay. It has its own database, and when it comes to like in terms of reports, you spoke about reports and other things here, right? How are the integrations when it comes to S4 HANA? Like, is it easy integration with a lot of other tools? You were talking about BI, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
other tools like Tableau and other things. If people
Mm-hmm.
want to use different tools there, how is the integration? Is it inbuilt or is it something that you will have to again write a code? Is it like cumbersome? How is it?
No, the interfaces are any made be SAP to, let's say, there can be, let's say, you have two instances where one of your business is in ECC, which is the older version, and the other business you said implemented S4 HANA there. And now you, meanwhile, you are migrating, you still have to integrate. So the integration within SAP, S4 HANA or ECC, or S4 HANA and some outside system, the integration is seamless. There are always some PIPO tools which are available for integration, or you have web services, something that can be used, and in the integration there is no problem in integration. Like in one of the implementation, I remember it was with the warehouse, where there are machines, like you have those vertical lifts where you press the button and the entire warehouse comes. You put your things
Right.
there and then you press, and then so it is like the vertical shelves which arranges all the items. So that is a non SAP system. And since it's a part of the warehouse, the requirement was where we wanted to do all the store in and store out. So the moment I store in anything from that particular vertical lift, the data should also pass on to SAP. So this was an integration between SAP and a non SAP system. So again, this integration was because it brings all those integration plugins. So it was very seamless. So even the store in and store out, again, it has to be compatible both way. SAP was compatible, and even the machine which was there in the warehouse, that was also compatible. So that way we were able to do the integration between the vertical lifts, which we have that ASRS system, which is automatic storage and retrieval systems. So I think majority of business where they have big warehouses, especially the retail chains and bigger manufacturing unit where they have a lot of items in the warehouse. So they usually use these ASRS machines in their warehouse. And in case
Mhm.
they have SAP in their business, so they kind of want to integrate. So this and these integrations have been like, I have done many of such integrations. So yeah, it works well.
Right. And when it comes to, I think, migration, one of the big challenge with any of the product is migration. So how is the migration process in SAP? Right? Is it like again cumbersome performance wise? And if you want to get into a little technical, also it would help people, right? In terms of migrating from, say, probably the older version of SAP to any modules like S4 HANA or other things.
Yeah, so I haven't worked in any migration projects. I have worked
Mhm.
in upgrade, but migration, like I said, it is a part of all the implementation project. Let's say if I have all my data in older version, let's say, and I have now the new version. So even when I say migration, it's mainly the data migration.
Right.
And the data migration, there are tools which are available in SAP. Like we have the LSMW. So people who knows SAP, we have this LSMW tool. We have BADI, we have BAPI. Plus, we can also make customized programs to migrate the data. So first step is to make sure that the tool is there in place. First, that's the first thing. And second thing is, let's say if there are a lot of customized fields, let's say if you have a purchase order field, you do a transaction, and as a part of the business process there were some fields which was added. It was not a part of the product, but because there was a business requirement, you added it. So those things, if you're planning to migrate, you may not find it on those standard LSMW program, which is the product of SAP for migrating the data, because they maps that, okay, these are the 100 fields, okay, these are the tables, and this is how they will go. That's the product, standard product. But in case there is a customization in any process, you will get to know, okay, this particular field is missing because this was not of the part of the standard. So in
Hmm.
that case, again, SAP gives you all those products where you can use those BTC recording, or you can use somebody where you can build a program, map all your fields, and make sure all the alignment of data is there, and obviously you do all those mock runs to make sure that things are going correctly. So that is one part of the data migration. The second very important part of data migration is the cutover activity. When I say cutover activity, it is like, let's say you were in Oracle system where you said, okay, now from 31st of March, you will now move to SAP. And you have already tested your SAP system, maybe CC or S4 HANA. And you said, okay, we will be good to go. But because you are migrating, the business is not going to stop. You will still punch POs, you will still do the goods invert, and you will still do your production. The process will go as usual. So there is a process of cutover which is again planned well in advance so that there is zero downtime, because at the usually the cutovers are where least number of downtimes, and you have something outside the system but you have very less backlog, or the delta we say, while we do the migration. So whenever this cutover is planned, so we make a pool. Usually, as a part of the process, we make a pool of, okay, how many, and based on the mock loads and the experience that we have, because when we load the data, we obviously we do multiple runs, like 3 to 4 runs, and each time we do a run, there is also a process of data cleansing, because
Right.
when we migrate the data, obviously these were like all old data where they then realize that, okay, maybe I don't need it, it's 15 years of data, maybe I can archive this, I just need to migrate 5 years of data. And every month when we do this load, I also get to know that, okay, I will have these many POs open, these many purchase orders will be there where I have done the receiving but I have not posted the invoice. Maybe I have posted the invoice and I have done the partial invoice. So there can be multiple scenarios. So all those scenarios based on the module has to be made noted, and a strategy has to be decided for each and every scenarios. Like a PO is created but not received. That can be a scenario which can happen on 31st of March when I migrate. How many such POs can be closed before time so that I have less number of delta? So likewise, there are multiple scenarios. Even in finance, there will be something open in the books, which I know I cannot close because of some other reason. Maybe the invoice was not clear or some reason. So all these scenarios needs to be listed and a proper strategy has to be decided so that we have minimum level of open delta during the cutover. So data migration, we mainly have two aspects. One is the master data, and then we have the transactional data. So for master data, it becomes easy because you can load the data. You just take the data from old system, clean it, do some mining, and then just move it. And again, to move it, we use the standard tool if it is working. Otherwise, we use the custom program that can be again built in SAP. So that
The
those tools are
standard
used.
tool is again within SAP, right? The
Yeah,
standard tool
standard
that you're talking about.
LSMW tool which we use.
Mhm.
So those tools can be used to migrate the data, and that is for again the master data. Likewise, for all those transactional data, like your purchase orders, your production orders, your invoice, and all those things. So those are your transactional data which comes from the end user. So for those transactional data, that cutover also plays a very important role. Like, okay, I after this date, I will not allow anything to be punched in the system, because I know this next it's like if 31st is the date when I'm going live. So at least 2 days in advance, I'll say, okay, if some PO has to be done, you do it outside the system so that in the new system you will punch the new ones and everything
Right.
will go in the new system. So those are the kind of transactional data that goes as a part of the migration. So these are the
Yeah.
two very important data, master data and transactional data, which becomes a part of the entire migration activity. And even for the transactional data, we use again those LSMWs or the BDC program to make sure that fields are mapped properly, and then it is migrated to the new system.
Right. And I'm assuming most of it these days is like on cloud, right? Earlier, when compared to the on-premise, I think
Mhm.
it's moved towards cloud.
Yeah, again, S4 HANA, it gives you that option. You can use on premise, you can use on cloud, and it
Mhm.
becomes easy to have things on cloud. So people usually prefer to be on cloud.
Right, and you have done so many implementations. I'm sure you would have had a lot of success stories there. But what I want to know from you is any failure story in terms of where you faced a lot of challenges in that implementation, right? It may not be
Yeah.
the failure at the end of the project, right? I'm sure, like by the end of the project, you would have fixed things and then got success. But any project where you found like real challenges there, and that was one of the projects that you still recall in terms of implementation challenges. So can you cover those challenges and how were you able to fix it so that others can also gain through your experience?
Yeah, so I think in all the projects there were challenges, and touchwood, so far I have not worked in any project where it did not end. It ended up, though there were some crash landing, but somehow we had every all the passengers were safe, kind of. So it was, I think, in one of the project, which was it was somewhere in Europe. So it was just before the go live, and again it was during the testing and everything was all good. Major challenges come during the cutover and your data loads. So the problem was, there was some mismatch of data that happened. And when we were, and you do the reconciliation before you say that, okay, we are good to go live. So there was some issue with the reconciliation on what was there in the books in the old system and in the new system. So that was again because of some mismatch in the data. Someone did not check it properly. So that was one big issue which usually comes in most of the implementations. And then we either have to get a sign off that, okay, we'll see it in the new system or we fix it in the old system. So this is the data migration issue. Second, I will say it did not come just before we go live in the system. I will say the most important thing for a, or my failures were the the end users, because this is a system for the end users. So
Right.
very important thing which sometime I ignored was later on, ended up me being working late and fixing the issue, was we assumed that, okay, they have understood how to use the system. And then when we went live, they did some mistakes and it went somewhere where it took a lot of time to replicate that issue and find the fix. It was like you are gone live and there is an issue which has come, and that usually after we go live we have that hypercare phase where we have to see everything is in hypercare and we have to make sure things are going well. So there was one of the like majority time there was a failures where things went wrong and we assumed that this is how it will be. And third thing was there were some validations which were missing, and again that was a miss during the implementation where we felt that, okay, the user cannot go there and do this. We
Hmm.
assumed that there was no block there, so it was an open door, because we thought no one will go there. There was no validation built in the system. So because of that, the data went somewhere else and it was like complete reversal. And like I said, SAP is an integrated system. So if some transaction happens in MM module and then it goes to SD and then it goes to finance, and at the end when finance sees that something is not matching, you have to reverse everything back. So because those validations, those business rules were not written properly, so we have to again reverse everything back. And reversal in SAP, like, it is not very easy to reverse things in SAP, especially if you have a lot of customized things in SAP.
Mhm.
So that became a very big nightmare, I think, in some of the implementations that happened. And also replication of the issues, because when the issue comes, you have to fix that. To fix that issue, you have to replicate the entire end-to-end scenario, because till
Right.
that you don't know what happened. Even though you have those ABAP, you can debug the program and you know, but to debug you have to debug in the production system. Usually it is not allowed to debug in production system. You have to replicate everything in the dev system, and then you have to find the root cause and pass on the fix. So that was again an issue. Usually like hypercare they allow, but most of the things after hypercare, if things goes wrong, then these were like few failures, or I'll say things where it did not go right. Was use again very simple is user training, which every time we tend to say, okay, it will be taken care, and then when the user breaks the system, and you have to come and fix the system, then that becomes a nightmare. So user
Right.
training is something very, very important.
Yeah, I think that's something important in every tool or product, right? Not only SAP, right?
Yeah.
Because if users are doing it, we need to have that validation testing and all kinds of testing done on the platform. Right.
Yes.
So users, of course, there are a lot of challenges that comes when it comes to like users and testings and all. How about SAP in terms of automation? Right. One is we see users, one is we see the level one work and all of it getting done there. How is automation being implemented in SAP, especially the S4 HANA thing, and how is it helping people today?
Yeah, in SAP, I like I said, it has that integration. So you have this machine learning, you have artificial intelligence, so it can integrate very well. Plus, the way the entire tool is managed, there are a lot of transactions that can be automated in SAP. Let's say, for example, let's say you have punched a purchase order. You want an automatic notification should go to the person if it has to be approved, not that you have to send an email. Simple, if I talk about the simple automations which any business would like to have these days. So you have those standard workflows which will trigger automatically notification to the users that okay, now you have to do it. Or you can also build program where automatically the moment it is approved, the next level of whatever is the process for that purchase order, that needs to be triggered the moment the purchase, or even when the part is coming to the shop or to your warehouse. There are certain functions that needs to be done. So
Right.
that
So in that, I want to pause you here. So in that, you would have done a lot of implementations and you have automated a lot of stuff as well.
yes, yes.
Okay. So so SAP automation is also taking away a lot of jobs from people,
Yeah,
the level
that
one, level two
I have
jobs.
seen. Yes, that I have personally seen. So it was a very old plant. uh, it was a beverage company, very old plant, where they implemented SAP, plus they also had all those Rockwell and Siemens automation products, and that was a production unit where the sensors and everything was being implemented. And then it, after 1.5 years of entire implementation and automation, that entire setup was a state of the art fully automatic setup. That they had
Mhm.
5 rows of manufacturing. They did it automation only for one line of their production line.
And how many people did it replace the tool?
So the entire business case for that project was the number of people they are working to entire operation end to end, building from the cap to the bottle of the beverage.
And how much was that approximate number?
So it was around 60% reduction of manpower.
So that was around like in terms of number, how much was it, if you
It was
recall?
like 120 people and 60% reduction for that.
Right.
So
So yeah, I think that's where I think audience who are listening to this or later going to listen to this, understanding the importance of how automation is changing the way things are going, right? And I think one of the biggest thing that people actually look at is again it's the mindset is what I could say. When people are looking at automation taking away their jobs rather than looking at automation, how can I learn more, how can I acquire those skills, especially skills like s for hana or any other skill which is going to be the skill which is in demand in future, and doing that high level of task or the tasks that are in demand, right? Like whatever you are doing today. So that's something that can change the game. And since you have been doing a lot of implementations, of course technology technical things are one thing in any field, but what are the other things that you feel that has helped you apart from like learning SAP, right? In terms of your growth, that people who are in the SAP field can also grow faster.
yeah, for people in SAP field to grow faster, I will say you have to be very curious about the product, because this product keeps changing, and every time something new comes up. In SAP, it's very easy to customize something. You can say, okay, this is not available. Okay, you can do some coding and you can customize. But if you know the knowledge of the product, you can say, okay, there is a standard product available. Let's use this. Advantage, if you know the product well, is like for a short fix you can say okay, now this you did the customization, it is okay. Tomorrow, let's say you are upgrading the system. Let's say right now, if it is 1710 version of S4 HANA, tomorrow it becomes, let's say, 2022 or 23, next year release. So the product keeps upgrading. So whenever you upgrade, if you have done all those customization, it becomes very difficult to migrate those customization. The more standard product you have, it becomes easy. May it be reporting, may it be data mining, may it be creating some BI report or HANA report, it becomes very easy. So always it's very important to know the product and use as much as possible the standard product, so that in the long run the business will have all the benefits. So
Right. And
that is something
any complementary tools or anything that they should learn if they are growing. Like for example, somebody at your level, right, have already done a lot of work on SAP, right? Any other things that they should be learning apart from SAP itself, like it can be the BI tools, right, or it can be other tools that can complement that you grow as a leader, right, or it can be any other skill that can help them.
Okay, yeah. So obviously, to grow you as a person, I will say you have to. SAP is a tool, but you can work as a consultant till like one implementation, two implementation, and then obviously you want to grow. And if you grow, maybe you become a manager or senior manager. Like this is how I grew. I started as a consultant, I became a manager, then senior manager, then delivery manager in SAP world. And reason I grew was product was the focus for sure, because at the end of the day that is what I have to talk, so
Right.
that I know the business. Second thing is there are a lot of other soft skills which is also important, because I have seen in a lot of, especially the technical people, the ABAP people, and most of the projects where I have worked. So they are very good at their skill. They know the product, they know in and out of everything. But the soft skill, the presentation, the communication skill, the confident that you talk. So these are also something very important, and that is something for your growth, because in SAP you are also working very close to your client. So you have a lot of client facing role where you're sitting beside the client and fixing the issue. So you have to also know how to manage the client, because there are some times where you have to say no for few things,
Right.
and there is a way to say. Obviously you cannot say no to your bluntly to your client. So these are some soft skills, like building your network, so that you know you have your people of influence around you, who has to be influenced, why this person is important. So you have to know the hierarchy. So these are some kind of soft skills which I always prefer that people should know if they want to grow in any career, may it be SAP, may it be technical, non technical, anywhere. So these are soft skills which are always very very important. You need to know how to talk. You need to also know, if you have done the work, you should show. You should be able to. I see that a lot of people, they shy away from showing what they have done. They do a
Right.
lot of work, and I remember there were a lot of people in my team. They do a lot of work, they don't show. There are also people who don't do things, but they do all lot of shosha here and there, that I did this. So that it hurts, because people who know, they don't, at the end of the day they don't end up growing up.
Right.
So these are some soft skills which I always say that has to be there for any kind of growth, may it be
Right.
personal, may it be professional, which is
Yeah.
very important.
Perfect, perfect. And I completely agree with you. Like any field, be it technical, non-technical, some of the very important skills is, of course, like communication is a critical skill. Because
Hmm.
whatever you do in technology, in SAP, in IT world, or whichever world, if you are not able to communicate to people, then you cannot grow, right? If people don't understand your message, you cannot grow. And as Indu, you also mentioned, you're talking to client in most of the roles as you grow, right? If your clients don't understand what you're saying, then it makes no sense for them, like what you are building in terms of a product or a service, right? So
Yeah.
communication, creating that visibility, because if you are not visible in your workplace, then you cannot grow again. So that is where marketing is very important for people as a skill. And I think the last one is definitely the leadership skill, or the networking. All this comes under that, right?
Yep.
So being able to network with people, collaborate, right? So I think these are some of the important skills. So thank you
Yeah.
for adding
I
those skills.
remember,
Hmm.
I remember I was in Europe, and my client was French. I learned French so that I can connect with
Wow.
him. And there are some clients which are tough, and for them you have to go down and learn a lot of things. Again, not SAP, this is not SAP, but I knew that if I have to work with this client so closely, I have to learn Dutch, I have to learn some language of French, so that I can connect. If I connect, then this person will be easy on me, and I if even though I have a doubt, it will be easy for me to go and ask him. So
Right.
these are something which I did out of the box.
I think that
to
this is very good. This is very good. Thanks for sharing, because I think people don't understand, right? For growth, it is not just about technology or the technical or the core skills. It is you becoming resourceful, adaptability, right? Like you becoming adaptable to that particular place, becoming resourceful, like Indu did, learnt a language because she knew that she's going to work in a project which is of a different country altogether, being able to communicate to them and sharing your message and building that rapport and relationship. All of these are very, very important. So thank you for giving that golden tip as well, right? And for people who are starting, now we spoke about growth aspects of it, people who are already there in SAP world. But for people who are starting into, right,
Mhm.
SAP is of course a tool in demand, but it is again costly, right? People cannot afford to like install on their particular laptops and then learn it, right? How do they enter into the SAP world? What are the skills that they would need to learn, and what are the ways that can help them to easily enter into this world and grow as well?
Yeah, if they are if they are freshers and they want to enter the SAP world, I will say I think there are some courses which are available. They can do some certification course, and they also give you the system availability where you can play around the system. So that is one way. Second, like I said, I will always prefer that person to not jump into SAP as a fresher. I will say prefer go do some domain work,
Mm-hmm.
work very close to the business, maybe 1 year, 1.5 year is also more than enough. And then in parallel you can do the certification or learn SAP, because there are a lot of coaching institutes who, there can be expensive ones, there can be ones which are very reasonable price. You get the systems and you also get access to play around and learn little bit, and then you can get into a proper SAP job. So I will always suggest to get into the domain knowledge first, then get into SAP. That will help you to grow faster once you get into the SAP world.
Right. Thank you for those tips. And if somebody has to like again do a career transition, right? Because SAP is again in demand. Now somebody is into like you are into mechanical field, you understood mechanical very well, and then you got into SAP. Somebody coming from a different field altogether, right? If they have spent like 10, 12 years in their career, can they also transition into SAP, and what are the steps that they can take to actually transition into the SAP world and grow?
Yeah, if that person has worked for 10 to 12 years, I will say, like, I have a very good example. So I had a friend. So I think I have worked, he was a business guy there, he was a finance person from business. I was from SAP,
Mhm.
I did my implementation and I moved to a different project, again SAP. And this person was still there in the business, and it was like 2 years back. He's still there, I think he is 12 years, and he knows in and out of finance, and he has done all the transaction in SAP, because we have implemented SAP and they're still using SAP. So he
Mhm.
knows the transactions, how transaction happens in SAP. And the best part is he knows the business of finance. And now
Good.
he was also struggling because like he wants to change the job, and he knows SAP is a highly paid job, and he knows little bit of SAP. So what I suggested him is, now since you know little bit of SAP, because you are using SAP every day, and the
Right.
biggest advantage with you is you know the business. So
Yes.
for you to get into the SAP world is not tough. You just go give interview, prepare. Obviously, you have to prepare some of the basics. So you have those, you get the standard configuration documents. So just go through that. Or if you have someone who can guide you, just some brush up, I'll say. So that will help to move from migration. And like you said, if the person is 10 years plus in domain or something, not in IT but want to move, I think they are the best people who will become the consultant, because they know
Wow.
business.
I think that's I think a hope for a lot of people who want to get into SAP. If you have domain knowledge, of course, like as Indu also started with her career where she was a user of SAP, right? You might be an user or you may not be. If you are an user of SAP, like in your organization, SAP is being used, understand from there in the user perspective how it is being used, master your domain, and then also, as Indu mentioned, like look at documentation, look at some courses, pick up from there, and of course you can transition. And once you transition, maybe an year or so for that breakthrough, and you can grow very fast in this SAP world as well, which is highly in demand today, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great path and good tips there. And we have been talking about SAP S for HANA. Yeah.
I just want to add one more thing is when moved, so I used to spend, I was a end user. So I didn't get the chance to get into the code or configuration how, but I knew that I have the access to those documents. So I used to spend extra hours in office to learn. So like 6 o'clock people used to go, but I used to be there in office for 3 hours, 4 hours to just go and see how it is working, what are the documentation, why this is happening, when I click this happened, why it happened. So at least I had that access, and I made sure that I leverage all those documents, spend some extra hours, so that way I utilize the resources.
Great. I think that's the formula for success for all those people, right? Some people see, hey, Indu is
Mm.
successful, but like Indu has been successful, but they don't know the journey, right? I think curiosity is a lot of people start with curiosity and then becoming resourceful, just like you did, learning from various documentations that are already available. And of course, like hard work is there in any field, right? You work hard, you actually ensure that you're putting your heart and soul so that initial years you learn and then you keep growing, right? And you have been working in aviation industry, right?
Yeah.
So I know for any industry SAP would be the same, but any use case or anything you want to share from the aviation industry, like how SAP is being used today in aviation industry, and how can people leverage their aviation experience and get into SF, S4 HANA and then still become successful.
Yeah, aviation, I'll say it is one of the toughest industry because the processes are very complex, and also it has to be very precise. So I'll say I'm still learning the processes there. There's a lot that I still don't know about aviation, but one thing that I know in aviation is things are very fast here, like the turnaround times. So any turnaround time where you have let's 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time to fix things, and that is very critical. And because it's a very expensive industry, there's a lot of money involved. Even slight delay can lead to a lot of cost, loss of your business or a loss in your business. So the things and the processes here in aviation compared to the other businesses that I have worked in, here I see there is a lot of scope for automation.
Mhm.
The processes has to be very simple, and I do see there is a lot of scope where the processes can be simplified. And in aviation, more or less, like across different uh, verticals, may it be there can be various aspects in aviation, but here, like I said, the turnaround time, which is very important time, the automation and integration, because not everything which is needed in aviation I think is available in SAP, because even SAP is developing their product around aviation. Because
Mhm.
we do see there are a lot of gaps which even SAP is identifying, okay, yeah, this is a gap which we are giving them, okay, this is something which is a process, maybe the product is not ready yet. These are the inputs we are giving to build the product. So there's a lot of gaps, but again, this is the way we are building the product and optimizing. And maybe once the entire launch happens, we'll get to know the full blown product. So
Great. That
that's
is
the
nice.
phase where the A&D part of SAP is, because
Right.
most of
And
maybe Boeing or Airbus, they're still in the process of implementation. They have not done it yet.
okay. And how do you see the futuristic digital technology solution in especially the aviation industry, right? When it comes to this SAP,
It has a lot of scope because the way the product is marketed, like the
like
best
any
way.
use case you want to talk about, like how the futuristic digital technology can change the aviation industry. especially when it comes to like implementing SF, S4 HANA or anything around SAP.
Yeah, so the most important piece of SAP is it's an integrated system.
Hmm.
And even though you have a third party system, it becomes very easy to integrate. So
Right,
because the integration is easy, the entire flow of my business becomes easy. So if I am a CEO or a CIO or a CFO, I for me it actually doesn't matter whether the data comes from Oracle or SAP or this.
right.
But at the end of the day, when the dashboards are created and the visibility of the data, it becomes very easy with the S4 HANA, all the capabilities that S4 HANA gives as a product.
Yes. And
The
any
thing,
example you can pick up from the aviation industry, how it can be applied there, and you see the futuristic technology can make changes.
yeah,
Like from the aviation industry, it can
yeah,
be around maintenance, it can be around anything around flights, right?
yeah. In aviation industry, I will say mainly again there are different aspects. May it be, let's say, a process where you have the order to cash process, where let's say a big engine, let's say Boeing sends a big engine to you and they say that I need this to be overhauled or repaired within 3 weeks of time. So you have all, and when it comes to engine, it's a very complicated structure. It's not very easy to put all those structure. And when you bring a part out and what goes in, there is lot of certification, there is lot of quality check, because it is the life of people flying, because the
Right.
even small defect can lead to a lot of casualty. So there's a lot of precise work that is needed in aviation. And SAP as a tool, the best part is it allows you all those level of customization, where you can integrate everything in one particular tool. You don't need to have multiple systems. Like people who were not in SAP and now moving, the biggest reason for them to migrate from a non SAP tool to SAP was because it gives you an integrated system where you can also customize based on your requirement. All your complex structures can be built into SAP. From that structure, the flow to your respective, maybe the production process or the repair process or maybe your sales process, when a sales of, or let's say you're doing a repair, you're doing the invoice and all those processes. So those things, the entire process becomes seamless because of the integration. And that I see as the biggest advantage of having SAP. And especially there are a lot of other A&D specific products which SAP is launching, mainly for aviation business. Like if you have a subcontracting process where if you cannot do that work, you will subcontract it to someone else. So that's also a standard process, but specifically for aviation there are a lot of processes that are built as a product of SAP. So these are something which I see as a digital way of doing a business process in a much optimized way. So
Great.
these are some of the use cases. Then in obviously you have warehouses everywhere and you have ASRS
Right.
systems everywhere. So even that integration, because like in earlier we used to have WM. Now we have that extended warehouse EWM system, and that again gives a lot of flexibility to manage all those complex warehouse where you have absolute traceability of where your parts are, so that in case of emergency you don't roam around the entire system. You just one click and the things goes in out, and you have also that integration between that particular machine which is not in SAP. The data in out is completely integrated. So that way all these automations and integrations make this tool a good tool to use for day to day business, and especially where you have a very complex process in aviation.
Right, and I think that that's what has made it the most preferred tool, I think, and that's where the demand for SAP has been always increasing. So I think we covered a good portion of SAP today on this particular episode, especially the S4 HANA part. And before we conclude, I want to understand from you about your book as well, right? You are writing this book, right? Nowhere to grow but up, right? So
But
that's the book title. We can see
yeah.
it here. So, what is this book all about, and when can people expect this book, and where can they actually go ahead and purchase this book when it's available?
Yeah, so this book, I'll say this is SAP. I love SAP, but this book is a part of my passion project, I'll say.
Okay.
So as and when I started growing in my career, I started as a mechanical engineer, then I became a consultant, then manager, senior manager, grew to multiple leadership roles and all. So as a part in my entire journey, for me, my career has been good. I've seen growth and all those things. And again, I'll say all hard work and that has gone into place. But in this entire journey, I saw there are a lot of women. I see they are not at that level where I think they should have been. Like in my own friends, my own colleagues, somewhere I saw they are dropping out.
Hmm.
And so this book, as a part of this book, I have put my journey in place, and this is mainly to, I will not say it is women centric book. It is in general, because growth is something everyone wants to have growth and
Right.
grow. So in this book, what I have done is what has helped me personally in my journey. And it was not an easy journey from a mechanical engineer to become come into IT, survive in IT, that too with a product which is unknown to me, and become kind of an expert in that project. So it was not an easy journey. So all those things that I have used it or implemented on myself, learned, failed, did the mistakes, so everything I think I have put in this book, so that in case someone is facing any challenge, struggle, maybe that book can be a help. So that was the whole reason to write this book, where it's all about the 9 principles of unstoppable growth. And
Great.
this growth, again, when I say, it is not only the career growth, it is also as a person you have to grow. You have to also grow in relationship. Obviously, you have to
Right.
grow in finance. So all kind of holistic growth that I'm talking about. At the end of the day, you have to be at a position but also be happy. So you have to also become a happy person at the end of the day. So everything is there, where I see growth in personality, I see growth in your bank balance, I see growth in your career. So all these aspects I have touched, which again I'll say it's kind of my reflection of what I have achieved so far. And the launch is somewhere in the date, somewhere in January. So it actually got delayed because of the New Year vacation. The publishing team is taking some time, so sometime in January. So I'm super excited about this book.
Great, and best wishes for your book. And of course, for people who have been watching us or people who are going to watch us later on the recording, if you are struggling in any domain, especially in SAP, right? So this episode is going to help you. And if you are looking to grow from any field, be it mechanical or be it any other non-technical field, and want to grow in SAP, this is the book you can pick up so that it can help you with the inspiration and the journey where Indu has gone through that journey and got success. And of course, like, she is looking for people, especially the women, who can actually become leaders. So any kind of those things, challenges, anything that you want to reach out, Indu is available usually on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can reach out to her. And yes, Indu, thank you for being here and sharing all your knowledge and experience and inspiring a lot of people out there.
Thank you so much. It was my honor. Like I said, I keep following you. I have seen your TEDx. I think I have heard your TEDx twice, and the way you spoke, it is amazing. I keep follow. I am a biggest follower. I'm biggest fan of yours for sure. And it
Thank
is
you.
my honor, my privilege to share this screen with a person. And I will say I you're gem of a person.
Thank you for that. Thank you
At the
for being
moment I
so
see
kind.
your smile, everything, doesn't matter how much stress I have, I see you on Facebook, and I think, yeah, my day is good. So thank you for spreading so much of love, so much of inspiration for the people.
Yeah, thank you for being so kind, Indu. And thank you everyone for watching us live and for people who are going to watch us later on the recording. Right, this is where you can learn. And of course, don't forget to pick up your book when it is available on Amazon during January. And you can reach out to Indu Sahoo on different social media channels so that you can learn, get inspiration, and grow from there. So thank you everyone. Thank you once again, Indu Sahoo, for being with us, and have a wonderful night.